Hi, I'm Cersei.
And I'm Angel.
And you're watching Twincast.
Today we'll be discussing the South Korean apocalyptic Sweet Home. It premiered on Netflix December 18th, 2020.
Sweet Home is based off the Webtoon comic series, which we analyzed in our last video.
We will be breaking this video down into two parts. What we felt worked well, and what we felt didn't work as well. Disclaimer, I've only read the first 15 episodes of the Webtoon comic and have only seen the first episode of the television series. Also, there are spoilers ahead. Cersei is way better at giving reactions, so we're gonna go ahead and roll that.
That's scary. Dinner, it's 10 o'clock. That's a sticky situation. No smiles, damn. So far they've brought like every element that was in the comic to life. I like how it's almost identical to the comic. I mean, I think they could have done better at her visually, but okay, I thought they couldn't do worse. If Puppy dies, I write. Hurry back, throw the thing! Push him! Hurry! Just get away, guys! Well, I like the parts where they took directly from the comics. That was pretty cool. No, the parts they took from the comics and did their own versions of, I thought it was good and it made sense. When he wanted to kill himself and she distracted him, the August 25th thing, and him being accepted to test the game, just giving him purpose. And it was pretty suspenseful, especially with people's fear clouding their judgments and their reactions made it suspenseful.
I love the opening credits. It captures the aesthetics and tone of the Webtoon comic. In case you haven't seen our previous video, the psychologist Carl Jung developed the theory the shadow, which is all the aspects of ourselves we're unconscious of or have disowned that is in need of healing, such as insecurities, trauma, and painful memories. Monsters in the Sweet Home universe are the shadow. Check out our previous video if you haven't already, where we analyze the Webtoon comic and go more in depth on this subject. Let's discuss the opening credits. The first image we see is a straight line. To me, this represents this idea of duality and division of self. It also makes me think of a heart monitor line, a stagnation of life. An image emerges from this line. It's like a face suffocating and trying to break through the surface. I also think it resembles mountains. When we're on a healing journey, it can emotionally feel like we're trying to move mountains. What it transitions to reminds me of an image from our previous video. Eyes are a big thing in this, whether it's eyes of judgment or your subconscious trying to communicate. Again, division of self. You definitely see the shadow a couple times in this intro. There are a couple images that looked barred in. We store our shadow in a dungeon. When we neglect it, we're unknowingly feeding it emotional energy. The bars make me think of an electrical current. Over time, as it's neglected, it grows and intensifies. I love this idea of the heart. Our emotions pulses in our heads and often takes over our behavior. Look at that vulnerability. It looks so similar to the image I used in our last video to describe unhealed trauma. I love this looking down point of view. It's like how we see ourselves. Blood on the feet, to me, represent what we carry with us from where we've been. Unhealed aspects of ourselves can be self-destructive. I'm thinking this is like clouded judgment, or perhaps a facade, a protective layer we've created for ourselves. Again, this fetal position of vulnerability, it pans outward like a mind-fabricated hell. I like that he descends a staircase. He's crossing the threshold, entering the depths of a dark unknown and leaving the world he knew behind. He clutches his computer as a protective barrier, like a security blanket. One of my biggest issues with the Webtoon comic was the protagonist's motivation behind choosing a random day on the calendar to commit suicide. I felt the day needed significance. I was happy to see they addressed this in the screen adaptation. Adding the dancer also gives the character a reason to stall his decision. I like that this pushes him to interact with others earlier in the story. I appreciated that there was a quicker flow and a lot of the story information was revealed in more natural ways compared to the comic. For example, he's not just randomly watching someone's phone conversation. I like the idea in the show that our protagonist attempts to call the police, unlike the comic. Having no signal is always a go-to in horror to elevate fear and a sense of isolation. The phone issue is revisited later in the episode, but planting it twice really gets the idea across. Secondly, in my mind, technology in this universe represents productive barriers, and now that is broken. The new monster world is disrupting it. I was hoping the gangster character would subvert our expectations and not be what everyone expected, but at the same time, I appreciate that they took time to flesh out his character in this episode. He's still a mystery to me from where I am in the comics. I like the choice of having a female character taking initiative versus the comics. I like how they introduced a flaw, the bass player not minding selling out on her art. This hints at the demons she may encounter. I love that they added more female characters. It gives us a more rounded cast and more storylines to explore. Some don't like the variety of monsters, but I do. If the monsters represent the dark aspects of ourselves, then that looks different to everyone. The comic has enough storylines to successfully structure and support a television series. It's very fitting material for the TV format, and with its fan base, Netflix was so smart to pick this up. It's very timely and relatable as we're all stuck inside with this uncertainty in the state of the world and fear of infection and death.
The CGI just did not look that great to me. I don't know if the pilot was enough to draw me. I would have to get further in the comics and see if it's a story I would like to continue.
The ramen transition was pretty gross. Why jump off a building when you have ramen? My second biggest issue with the Webtoon comic was how unlikable the protagonist is. In the comic, he complains about his inheritances at his family's funeral. If this was in the screen adaptation upon first impressions of the character, it would have been too extreme, especially if they're trying to appeal to mass audiences to care about him. Caring about characters is the key to getting your audiences to invest their time watching a show. Usually when a protagonist's family dies, that is enough for us. Unfortunately, they haven't fixed this issue in the TV adaptation, but maybe it's better for us to be indifferent about a character than not like him at all. It will be easier to redeem him later on. The only characters I cared about in this episode were the ones that didn't exist or weren't as developed in the comic as far as I've read.
Same, those are the only characters I liked so far. That was probably my favorite part, even though it was really cheesy and they used like an American song. That was like the only part that actually drew me.
Final thoughts, it is a successful adaptation. Probably one of the best literary to screen adaptations I have seen in terms of remaining true to the work, but for me personally, it's just not my cup of tea. I want to take a moment to thank Neko Rabbit. He donated a mic to our production to help improve the audio quality on my end. In our last video, I ended up doing most of my parts in voiceover because of mic issues, so thank you so much for your support. Also, we hope you have a wonderful birthday.
Like, comment,
subscribe.